Hey guys, welcome back to Honeycomb. My name is KO. Again, going back to our basics with coffee. I just wanted to show you guys different coffees that we have in here in the studio right now towards the end of the year. It's the end of 2022. I've been traveling a little bit, spent a lot of time in Singapore. And then Dave also has a lot of coffees that came in as well. And then we have another coffee or another set of coffees from another source, and I want to tell you a bit about that. And I wanted to show you guys also what is definitely the best coffee I've tasted this year. Certainly one of the top 10 coffees I've tasted of all time, which is saying a lot. And I actually think that when we tasted it, Dave said that it was in his top 3 of all time, which also is saying something. Both Dave and I have been doing this for at least 10 years now. So for something to be up there is saying a lot. So today's actually the last day of work for us. Honeycomb will be closed for the holidays. And then when we come back, we really want to do a coffee tasting. And hopefully there'll still be a bunch of these for you guys to taste in that first week of January. So if you do want to know about that, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. But follow us on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. I'm at KO Kosho. Follow at Daily Drink Mag. And follow at Honeycomb Manila so that you get those updates about, when we're going to have this tasting. Right now, we're looking at the first Saturday of 2023. Ooh, 2023. They come from different places. We purchased some of it. We ordered some of it's been sent to us. And whenever that happens, we share it with all of our membership here in Honeycomb. You don't pay extra for nice coffees here. We just have the nice coffees and you can drink them. And so, yeah, that's why we want to do tasting, because we have a lot and we want to share, and we just want to push that culture of flavor and brewing. It's not a cupping. It won't be a cupping. I'm still personally not comfortable with that format right now, especially with beginners. And I would understand why other people don't feel so comfortable with it either. So we'll figure out a way to do some brewing and tasting. We have an idea of how we're going to do it. If you want to join, make sure that you are subscribed and you are following on Instagram. All right, so our first batch of coffee is actually the most recent to come in. I was in Data Blitz, and a guy went up to me and said, "Hey, are you KO Kosho?" And I was like, yeah. And usually when that happens, it happens a fair amount, but I always tend to think that someone remembers me from something stupid that I've done. I've had the unfortunate privilege of going viral a number of times. I'm very opinionated and I put everything online. So I didn't know if it was one of those things or from this. More and more it's coming from this, from coffee, from beverage, and from the YouTube channel. And so I wanted to say thank you to Nick Ong, who introduced himself and gave me these coffees. Very generous of him. There's a little bit of a story to it, I'll tell at the end. But in thanking Nick, I also want to thank all of you. Nick got into our videos from the kettle review, the pour over kettle comparison. As some of you know, I'm a Brewers Cup competitor and a professional coffee consultant, and pour over is kind of my thing. That's kind of where I'm best. And so that kettle video was something that I was going to do anyway, because I need to know about these things. And the fact that I put it out there and so many of you have watched it, I wanted to say thank you. Thanks for not skipping the ads. Thank you for watching online, because we get a lot of funding from that. And we really try to take all of the monetization that we get from the YouTube channel and feed it back into the YouTube channel. And that is one of the reasons why we buy a bunch of coffees and equipment for you guys, to share with you guys. It's something we want to do, and we're very lucky that you guys are willing to go along on this journey with us. So thank you for an incredible 2022. It's been the best of all of the years we've been on YouTube. It's been about 3 years now. It's still not massive, but it's something significant for us. And we appreciate your subscribership. And we really want to make more. It is important to us. And hopefully in the next year, we can do that for you. All right, so let's jump into coffees. Again, this is from Nick Ong. He introduced himself to me in Data Blitz. And our first coffee is from Homeground. It just says coffee on the front. Homeground is the home of the Singaporean Brewers Cup Champion Ellie. I had the privilege of her making coffee for us while we were in Singapore for the Food Hospitality Expo. And she has an unusual way of brewing coffee. Maybe we can talk about that in the future, or maybe when we brew this coffee. She uses 2 kettles, variable temperature, and then the second one is very light. So the packaging is in this matte plastic. I believe that this is a biodegradable. Yep, this bag is made of 100% recyclable plastics. Please recycle responsibly, so not biodegradable, recyclable. Crafted in Singapore and has a roast date, roasted on on 30 November 2022. You can read it. It says chocolate biscuit, green apple, muscat grape. And this is a little bit of the opposite of what other packaging does, which is to put the origin front and center. Here they're putting the flavor notes front and center. So when you pull that out, that's when you get to see the origin of the coffee. It's a Finca Limus Apaneca from El Salvador. That's where it was harvested from. And it has a Homeground logo, and you flip it over. Coffee varietal Tabi, honey processed. We brew with origami, Kalita, AeroPress, 91 to 93 degrees Celsius. Ratio of 1:15, 1 gram of coffee to 15 grams of water. We recommend you rest the coffees for at least 14 days from the roast date, best consumed within 3 months. Now, we've been seeing a lot of that. Most of these coffees, I would agree, are best up until 3 months, maybe even longer. And I really like that because it's kind of a switch from what we've been taught over the years, especially early on in coffee, that you had to have your coffee within 30 days or else it wasn't any good. You even had people say you had to drink it on roast day or it's not any good. And none of that is true. None of that is true. Coffee is different. Every coffee is different. And the truth is, sometimes if you consume your coffee too early, you miss out on something that you could have tasted at the end, right? That's why aged coffees are a thing. So that's the first coffee from Nick. Thank you so much for sending this over. Coffee number 1. Coffee number 2 is in this plain bag, very almost minimalist design, right? It's just a white bag. 200 grams of coffee. This was from a Japanese roaster, roasted on 11/25. And it says here, Gede Burka, 120 hours, Ethiopia. And then he goes on to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs about the coffee. It's in Ethiopia. He basically tells a story about how he went about getting it. It says it's a 14-day fermentation, allowed for strawberries and exotic ripe flavors to play out. Here's the thing, is that I've read this, and basically he's not entirely sure about what happens in the process of this coffee. But he does say that it's from Ethiopia, from Gede Burka, Chelchele. Now, we have tasted this coffee. It's not exceptional. However, I do really like that it is in this very bare bones packaging. And it just has that almost like a letter from the author, from the editor, or the roaster on the packaging. It was an interesting one. Coffee is not spectacular, but it is delicious. So we'll try that. It's a good, always nice to have different Ethiopias because Ethiopia is so diverse when it comes to flavor. All right, up next, also from Nick. First two are from Nick. And this is the third one. This is Kenya AB Karagoto from Nylon Coffee Roasters, one of my favorite coffee roasters in the region, if not the world. Producer, various smallholders, variety, SL28, SL34, yeah, Rui Ru 11, and Batian. So it's a mix of different varietals that have gone into this coffee. Now, the clue there is the AB. So if you see something like that where it has a letter designation coming out of Kenya, usually that refers to, they say quality, but really it's usually the sizing. So the size of the bean determines whether it's A, AA, AB, BB, ABB, whatever, right? So it kind of gives you an idea of what it is and generally what the quality is. But this is the way that Kenya does it. It's a system that's worked for them. And that's why you see a lot of these. Now we have tasted this. It is big and bold. It says here in the tasting notes, blackcurrant, juicy plum. Definitely there. I always love having these Nylon Coffee Roasters coffees. They match very well with my brewing style. And I always say, when in doubt, 96 degrees. So pump up your heat. when dealing with one of these light roasted, Nordic style roasted coffees, and it works wonders. Trust me, especially if you only have a little, it's worth doing. Now, Nick, who I met in Data Blitz and gave me these coffees, actually imports them. He has an agreement with these roasters, with Homeground, with Nylon. So maybe I'll leave a link in the description down below to where we get some of these coffees, so that if you want to get them here in Manila or in the Philippines, make it a little bit easier. All right, so from Nylon Coffee Roasters, that's the Kenya Karagoto. It's a Kenya AB. We have another couple coffees that are on the way out. Just a little coffee left. Also from Nylon Coffee Roasters. These are from when we went to Singapore for FHA, so a little bit older. These are from October, but again, coffees, they're good for months, guys. This is the Guatemala La Bugambilia, one of my favorite coffees from Nylon Roasters. Guatemala, delicious red apple, currants, raspberry, plum. And then the other one is the Ethiopia Chelbesa. Always get the Ethiopia when you're at Nylon. Always get the Ethiopia. This is a very classic flavor profile for them. Lime, pink peach, berries, bergamot. A 250 gram filter roast. So they're the same price, but they're 50 grams difference when we bought them. And if you come to our tasting, these will probably not be here anymore because there's like 20 grams there. We're gonna finish it. We're gonna finish it before then. So we got these direct. This one from Nick. But it was really nice to visit Nylon. I hadn't been there in a long time. All right, now another great cafe. Probably my favorite cafe visit from our most recent trip to Singapore, which was last week, was to a place called Asylum, which is on Jalan Besar in Singapore, Little India. In fact, they have an incredible cafe in an incredible building with Peranakan classic Singaporean design on the building in the shop house. And it was nice just to walk in and see a neighborhood cafe executed so well. And we picked up some coffees from them that we had tasted them roast while they were there. And here's the first one. This is the Colombia Armenia Quindío Pink Bourbon Honey plus Wine Yeast / Orange. So interesting packaging. We've seen similar packaging from Urban Coffee Roasters in Hong Kong. They have this kind of, what is that, jug format. So almost like a military supply inventory format. But this one has a vent. So the UCR ones didn't have a vent. So it's interesting to see this one that has the vent. On the different sides of the packaging, you have the different information, producer, altitude, roast process. And then on the back, they actually have their April brewer recipe, which you almost never see on any packaging. Gives you a little bit of an idea of what kind of dudes these guys are, or what kind of people these people are, I should say. There you go again, tastes best within 3 months of roast date. Now, the wine yeast plus orange, it's wacky. I'm gonna read a bit of it. This coffee was exposed to a dry anaerobic fermentation period of 72 hours with the pulp on. During the fermentation stage, ripe oranges and wine yeast were added. Afterwards, cherries were pulped, then left to dry on raised beds with ripe oranges placed among the coffee until the ideal moisture content was achieved. So if you've seen our videos on how to make oleosaccharum, then you know that the outside of the orange, the peel of the orange, actually contains a lot of the flavor. And it's the same concept where we're macerating through sugar. They're macerating, or they're extracting into the coffee instead of into the sugar. And those flavors come out in the coffee. They don't use the word infusion. It's kind of an infusion, but infusion kind of has a dirty connotation in specialty coffee processing. So they don't use it. It's just orange process. Now, this coffee, it's pretty wacky. It's like drinking Clinique Happy at some point. It's definitely not a day-to-day coffee, but it's delicious nonetheless, and an experience. And for, I think this is like 25 Singapore dollars for the 250 gram container. Totally worth it. I do want you guys to try it if you can. All right. After that, we have another coffee from Asylum. And this is the one that I bought first. I tasted this. I let them brew it for me in the cafe. And this one is the Primitive Bourbon Colombia Acevedo Huila natural ice fermentation. And the reason why I really wanted to taste this is that I'm a victim of tasting notes. And the tasting note here, the first one is condensed milk. Condensed milk, floral, peach, cacao nibs. Generally speaking, I've started to move away from the idea of tasting notes, but here's a great example of where they're just great marketing. So I picked this up, I smelled the tin, and when you smell the coffee, you smell condensed milk. It's like a cross between condensed milk. You know how like Krispy Kremes kind of taste like condensed milk? It's like that. And when you brew the coffee, you do taste it in the coffee, somewhere in the mid to end of the palate, but it's definitely there. It is definitely unique. So then they do this weird thing with the coffee where they freeze it. I'm not sure exactly what that does. It might change a cell structure. When you freeze things, there's shattering of walls that happen, all sorts of stuff. But the result is this very unique, very unusual coffee, and we had to pick it up. This is a great expression of what Asylum is doing on their filter side, but they do have a more like approachable coffee on their espresso lineup. So if you want to have the more unusual stuff, absolutely pour overs at Asylum. It's worth the trip. All right. Up next, we have a couple of coffees that you've probably heard of where this is from. This is a Square Mile Kirinaga AA. There we go again, the Kenyans with their letter naming system. Lychee, White Peach, Honeysuckle. Also SL38, SL34, R11, and Batian. And these were produced by Danson Gichuki Niera in the Kirinaga region. This was roasted in November. As you can see, it's starting to run thin. This is one of Dave's coffees that he brought in. I believe it was a guest from a client, a gift from a client. And we've been drinking it. It's a Kenyan. It's delicious. It's Square Mile. What do you expect? And then also from Square Mile, this one's still unopened. This is from Rwanda. So we haven't tried this. Tasting notes are mango, dried apricot, clementine, which is quite an English tasting note. One of the problems with tasting notes, who in Manila really knows what clementine tastes like? And honestly, sometimes these tasting notes from Western countries in Asian countries become a pissing contest of who knows more Western foods. So hopefully when we do tasting in person with each other, we can avoid that and maybe talk a bit more in terms that we all understand. I always talk about how this is something that's really important to me, that as Filipinos, as a coffee producing nation, that we develop our own vocabulary for talking about these things amongst ourselves without having to consider export so much. Because, you know, we're here in the Philippines and we drink a lot of coffee. Filipinos drink a lot of coffee. We want to drink our own coffee, but we're still trying to figure out what it tastes like based on what other people have been eating. And why can't we base it on the stuff we're eating so that we can understand each other? Why can't we have, you know, tasting notes like suma and latik, right? Or ube. So again, a discussion for another day, but those are some nice coffees from Square Mile. Roasted in England, from other parts of, these are both from Africa, I believe. Yeah, both from Africa. All right, speaking of African coffees, these next ones are from Plainside Coffee Roasters. Want to thank Plainside for sending these over. The first one is a Burundi Kibingo Oro yeast wash process. Tasting notes, Ponkan Assam tea, cherry wine, and it is a light to medium roast. Also a light to medium roast, you have their Kayumbu from southern province of Rwanda, honey process, lemon Ceylon tea, and brown sugar. So I would consider these very classic Plainside Coffee Roasters filter roasts where there's an element of tea, an element of acidity, and an element of sweetness that comes in, except for the cherry wine where it's a bit more fermenty in the flavor. Have tasted both of these. Like the Nylon coffees, brew them with very high heat, 96, maybe even boiling in terms of temperature, so that you can kind of complete the caramelization process, that Maillard effect of the coffees as you're brewing them. So thank you to Plainside for sending these over. Big friends and family of Honeycomb. And as such, they also sent over this tote bag, which I want to show you guys. So I actually haven't opened this yet. It says Plainside Coffee Roasters, wake up, drink coffee, get stuff done. Keep it simple. And then the Plain Sight logo established 2015. Wow, it's been 7 years of Plain Sight Coffee. Congratulations, you guys. Wow, that is great to hear. I remember when they were just starting. And Sean, who's the CEO of Plain Sight, was getting referred to by some people as this kid, right? Like, oh, there's this kid. You know, we've done a lot of work with Plain Sight over the years. It's good to see them continuing to grow. They've roasted a lot of our coffees. They've roasted a lot of our client coffees. All right, you guys want to hear about that best coffee I've had this year. Let's start first with this. This is from the community in Singapore. Mixed Variety Natural from Indonesia, from East Java. Now, I had the anaerobic version of this and it was delicious. It was a clean anaerobic. It didn't taste too much like kimchi and wacky stuff like that. I think the thing I appreciate the most about it was that it still tasted like a Java. Like you could still taste the terroir. So the guy who was introducing me to coffees, he's one of the founders at the community in Chinatown. He actually was the one who said, hey, so if you like that one, get this one for home because it's a little bit more approachable for day to day. Syrupy acidity, fruity sweetness, and smooth. They have different packaging for each of the coffees. So the locations have different layouts, and then the expressions, like the different processes, different flavors, have different color palettes in them. So we flip it over and it says, coffee is an expensive commitment, and along with it is a responsibility to enrich the lives of everyone who has lifted a finger for that benefit. Bag is fully recyclable. Please recycle responsibly. And has a roast date best 10 to 60 days after roast day. So not quite 3 months, but still a generous amount of time. So we actually haven't opened these because we've been drinking all these coffees. It'll be about the right time to open this, and when you guys get to taste it early next year, it should be nice and stable. We should know, have the parameter for brewing it well. So if you want to taste that, come on through. All right, before we get to our final coffee, the best one, probably the best coffee that I've tasted this year, I did want to take a moment to open up this package here, sent over to us by JC, who's JC Karandang is a good friend, and she asked if she could send this over for a friend who was doing an art drop. And as you know, we love art. So we'll take a moment just to open it, take a quick look. I don't know the name of the artist. I don't know anything actually about this package, except that it came from JC and that it is an art print. So we're gonna find out what it looks like together. Let's hope I don't break anything. All right. Oh, nice. Nice. All right, so this looks like it's a giclée print. It says Warco 2022. It's an illustration of, I believe, a man and a woman overlapping. Let's look this guy up because there's no information about him anywhere here. So let's look this up. All right, so his name on Instagram is Chow Warco, and his name is Marco Cabrera. So it's Marco Warcos. Invert the M. Oh, look at that! It looks like he's part of the Start Monsters community. So the name of the work is Half. Warco dropped 3 prompts. How do you visualize a word? Warco's third print drop is a collection of his Genesis artworks and his interpretation of one-word prompts from a community art challenge. 15 by 15 inches. This one I believe is probably a 10 by 10. Signed and numbered digital fine prints on, I hate when I have to say this, Hanemula paper. Congratulations to Marco Chow Warco on Instagram if you guys want to follow him. Thank you also to JC for sending that. All right, without further ado, without question, the best coffee that I've tasted this year, and definitely one of the best coffees I've tasted of all time, also from the community. We have a special packaging from what they're calling their Pinnacle series, and it says the art process. I didn't get it right away. And it's on this paper with this gold speckle in it. I believe that might be real gold flake. Now, V is actually the Roman numeral 5. So this is the 5th year anniversary coffee of the community, who has been operating for 5 years in Singapore. And it's called Our Process, and I'm guessing, my understanding is that it's about how they do things. Like, it's an expression of how community roasts their coffee, makes their coffee, serves their coffee, how they deal with people, and they wanted to express that out in a special cup of coffee. But also, this is a unique, bespoke coffee processed for them by this farm. So we'll read through it. Varietal is Castillo. Now, it's highly likely many of you have never heard of Castillo varietal. It is unusual. It is rare. One of the reasons why is that it's a short plant. It's a small plant. It doesn't generate a lot of cherries. It doesn't generate a lot of berries to turn into the coffee. So farmers don't lean on it because they get very little yield. It did cost a little bit more. I think converted into pesos, I did the conversion, and it's something like 8,000 pesos, 8,000 something per kilo of coffee. Gives you an idea of how special it is. But honestly, that's nowhere near the most expensive coffees that we've tasted. It's kind of middle of the price range. Of course, there's some crazy like 60,000 per kilos that we've had come through, 90 plus coffees. In terms of tasting the coffee, this is definitely a 90 plus coffee, not from the 90 plus brand, but you know what hopefully you guys understand. There's a scoring sheet. They score it from 80 to 100, and this is high. Let me put it that way. It's high. They have a unique processing that they had done special for them. It says here, origin Quindío, Colombia, Hacienda Mallorca is the name of the farm, Mallorca. Producer Santiago Londono. Processing 24-hour anaerobic fermentation, meaning usually they put it in bags, deprive it of oxygen, and then 24-hour aerobic fermentation. So I guess they open the bags, and then pulped and dried as a honey. So several steps go into making this coffee. It was made in the June 2022 harvest. Tasting notes are Kyoho grape, very specific, raspberry compote, tangerine, golden kiwi, and golden rum. They have a brewing recipe, brew it at 98 degrees Celsius. We followed that. Best enjoyed slowly. They also give a brewing recipe for 265 grams of water, which to that 15 grams of coffee ground medium fine is about a 17.2 ratio, I think. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when we first brewed this coffee, we were speechless. Like, Dave and I, Tin and Mac, we were all drinking it. We all kind of went quiet. Except for Tin, who had a lot to say. But Tin always has a lot to say. She was very confused, I think, by the coffee, by what she was tasting. But, you know, for Dave and I, we really felt like we were in the presence of greatness. Sounds stupid. I mean, it's a coffee. But you taste enough of these things and you see both what nature has done, but what people can do in taking food and just taking it to its apex, its pinnacle. And there's no essay about what the process is from the community. But if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a sip of this is a thesis. And so I've probably only spent an hour at the community, tops. But you can taste who they are in this coffee. And so I want to commend them on communicating through a coffee, through a flavor, through a profile who they are, who they've become in 5 years, and maybe even who they want to be. So congratulations to the community. You're my top coffee of whoever I am, right? This is my top coffee of 2022, and maybe, gosh, top 10 of all time. And it's not the stretch to say that I've tasted some of the best coffees in the world, brewed by some of the world's best brewers. So I did buy this, but I do want to thank the community for what they're doing. I hope you guys get to taste it. It's really accessible. They have a great location, probably has high rent on Upper Cross Road in Singapore, right by a train station in Chinatown, right in the center of everything. All right, this video's run way too long. I hope you did enjoy it. If you are free on the first week of January, do join us to taste these coffees, maybe some more. And that's it. Thank you again for watching all of our videos throughout 2022. Wish you guys good luck, good health, great coffee, and a happy holidays. Peace.